Diana Ross has lived an amazing life full of big wins and tough times. But there's one secret she kept hidden for more than 50 years, and she's only now starting to talk about it. Her friendship with Michael Jackson was different from anything else in the music world. Their connection was so strong and special that even Michael's best friends couldn't really understand it. He once said she was like a mom, like a sister, and something even more confusing than that. It was a relationship that stayed with both of them forever. Now, at 81 years old, Diana is finally telling us about that secret history. The story started back in 1969 when a group called the Jackson 5 came to Motown Records, a music company that already had lots of famous singers. Michael Joseph Jackson was only 11 years old at the time. He was just a kid. But he had such an incredible voice that Berry Gordy, the boss of Motown, thought Michael could be the next James Brown and Sammy Davis Jr. put together. To make the group look really cool and important, Motown asked Diana Ross, who was already the biggest star at the company, to introduce the Jackson 5 to everyone. They pretended Diana had discovered them herself. It was just a trick for publicity. But for young Michael, it felt like it was meant to be. Michael looked up to Diana from the very first moment they met, and as time went on, that respect and admiration turned into something much deeper. For almost a whole year, Michael actually lived in Diana's house in Los Angeles. He called her Mama. He would tease his sisters by telling them they would only be pretty if they looked like Diana. He told his friends that she was both someone who guided him and someone he dreamed about. Katherine Jackson, Michael's real mother, later wrote in a book about her life that her son often talked about Diana as if she were his second mom. But even back then, his feelings had hints of something unusual, something that didn't quite fit into normal family feelings. In 1971, Diana had her own TV special and she made sure Michael was on it. She didn't just show him as part of the Jackson 5. She showed America that this boy could shine all by himself. She carefully taught him things, like how to walk and move with confidence, how to calm his nervous feelings, and how to look at the camera with a big smile. That TV special wasn't just a show. It was like Diana was handing over her crown to someone younger, an older star teaching a younger one how to survive in a business that often destroyed innocent people. For Michael, having Diana believe in him meant everything. He would later sum up his feelings with one sentence nobody could forget. "She's mother, sister, and lover all combined in one." It was something no one really knew how to understand, but it showed just how strangely deep his feelings for her were. By the late 1970s, Michael Jackson wasn't just the cute kid from the Jackson 5 anymore. He was 19 years old, stuck somewhere between being a boy and being a man, trying to figure out who he was without Motown telling him what to do. In 1977, he got his first big movie role in a film called The Wiz, which was a new version of The Wizard of Oz, with all black actors. Diana Ross, who was already famous around the whole world, played Dorothy and Michael played the Scarecrow. For Michael, the best thing about doing this movie wasn't the movie itself. It was getting to spend every single day around Diana. The movie was filmed in New York City, far away from Berry Gordy watching over them and far from Michael's family. Here, for the first time ever, Michael and Diana lived in the same daily routine of work, practice, and long conversations late at night. People who worked on the movie noticed how close the two of them became. They whispered to each other about nights when Diana stayed at Michael's rented apartment until the morning came. Nobody ever proved what really happened between them, and neither Diana nor Michael ever explained anything. But for the people who saw them together, it was clear they were very close. Diana even joked with her friends on the movie set once, saying, "One thing's for sure, Michael isn't gay." The Wiz didn't make much money and critics said it was too over the top. But for Michael, making that movie changed his life. He didn't care about how much money it made. What mattered to him was the time he got to spend with Diana, private moments that regular people would never know about. When he was with her, he could show his weak side without anyone judging him. She listened when he talked about things he was worried about. She made him feel better when his voice shook with fear. And she gave him something really rare. She accepted him exactly as he was. Two songs from the movie, "Ease On Down the Road" and Brand New Day showed more than just the story. When you watched Michael and Diana singing together, there was a special harmony that felt personal, almost too private for everyone to see. They weren't just acting in a movie. They were looking at each other like they were sharing a secret that only they knew. For Michael, this bond wasn't romantic love like boyfriends and girlfriends have, but it was stronger than regular friendship. It was something he kept quiet about, something that gave him peace when his famous life got too crazy. By 1979, Michael was already getting ready for his next big thing with his album Off the Wall. But those quiet nights during The Wiz stayed in his heart. In a world that expected him to be perfect all the time, Diana let him be imperfect, and that was enough to keep her in his heart forever. The early 1980s were when Michael Jackson changed from a teenage idol into the biggest superstar on the entire planet. But even with all the cameras flashing and crowds screaming, one thing stayed the same: Diana Ross. Their connection had grown more layered, more complicated, and in 1982, Michael said something that shocked everyone. During an interview with Ebony magazine, his voice was shaking but strong, and he admitted, "It's Diana Ross. I love her." He didn't hide it in fancy words or put it in song lyrics. Michael had spoken directly, admitting that he dreamed of marrying her. At that time, Michael was in his early 20s, and Diana was in her late 30s. The 14-year age difference made their relationship seem strange, and most people didn't take his words seriously. Some people thought it was just a young person's crush. But the people who knew Michael well understood that he really, really meant it. Michael had carried this feeling since he was a little kid, and finally saying it out loud was one of the bravest things he had ever done. But the regular people watching didn't know what was happening when nobody was looking. By the mid-1980s, Diana had actually promised to marry Michael, not just once, but reportedly 2 times. She even wore his ring where everyone could see it. At the 1984 American Music Awards, she kissed him on the lips right there on stage and held his face in her hands, like she was daring the whole world to see what they had kept secret for so long. For Michael, that moment felt amazing. It was proof that the woman he loved so much might finally become his. But what really happened was much more painful. Diana Ross soon backed away from him. Michael's mother, Catherine, had openly said she didn't approve of the relationship. She called Diana too old, and warned that it would hurt her son's reputation. Newspapers and TV shows started calling Diana mean names, saying she was a cradle robber, someone who dates people much younger. Under all this pressure, Diana broke off her engagement to Michael and chose to marry a Norwegian businessman named Arne Næss Jr. instead. Michael was completely heartbroken. He didn't go to the wedding. Friends remembered how quiet he became in the days after. He avoided going to the music studio, refused to do interviews, and quietly admitted, "I loved her and always will." His heartbreak wasn't the loud, dramatic kind. It was quiet, eating away at him from the inside, and he wrote it into unfinished songs in his notebooks. To everyone watching from the outside, he was still the king of pop, untouchable and unstoppable. But to the people close to him, he was just a young man grieving the loss of the only woman he had ever truly loved. By the mid-1980s, Michael Jackson was standing on top of the world. His album Thriller had broken every single record, and he was now the most famous entertainer alive. But even when he was at the highest point of his success, the hurt Diana Ross had caused still bothered him. He had watched her marry Arne Næss Jr., start a new family, and build a life that didn't include him at all. On the outside, he kept making his music, but on the inside, he turned his broken heart into art. In 1987, Michael recorded a song called Dirty Diana. It immediately made people start guessing and wondering. To the public, he explained it was about pushy groupies, women who chased after musicians backstage. But people who listened really carefully felt something deeper. The timing seemed suspicious. The song got its copyright right when Diana's marriage was becoming official. Quincy Jones, Michael's longtime music producer, reportedly begged Michael to change the words, warning him that everyone would think it was about Diana Ross. Michael agreed to change one part of the song to make it sound more like a general story. But the pain in his voice told a completely different story. The words were sharp and almost angry, describing a woman hungry for fame and attention, someone who used love like a weapon. It was very different from Michael's usual themes about bringing people together and innocence. To people on the inside, the message was obvious. This song was about Diana, and she knew it too. Diana was furious. She refused to talk to him for weeks. Eventually, she relaxed a little bit, even turning the song into a joke in her own concerts, playfully mentioning it when she performed. But the crack in their relationship had been revealed. Their relationship became a strange back and forth. Michael could never let her go. But Diana seemed like she didn't want to fully commit to him, or to let him go completely either. When Michael was photographed with Madonna, Diana showed up again, sitting on his lap at parties and taking all his attention. At award shows, she flirted with him on stage, blowing kisses and holding on to him even when he brought other women as his dates. Friends described it like a cycle. Michael trying to move on with his life, Diana pulling him back, not to claim him as her own, but to make sure no one else could have him. The result was a silent war of love, jealousy, and things they never said out loud. Michael admitted in his autobiography called Moonwalk in 1988, "I've always loved Diana Ross, and I always will." But the truth was more complicated than that. She was both his greatest comfort and his deepest pain. The one person who could lift him up and destroy him all at the same time. The 1990s brought storms that Michael Jackson couldn't dance away from. In 1993, the first public accusations of child molestation shocked the world. A 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler and his father accused Michael of abuse, starting a media circus like nothing before. Police raided Michael's home called Neverland. Reporters followed his every move, and TV networks played every rumor over and over until it seemed like his career might fall apart completely. Through all of this, Diana Ross stayed quiet in public but stayed strong and supportive in private. Friends who were close to Michael said she called him on the phone, visited him, and told him over and over that she believed he was innocent. When his own sister LaToya made really bad statements against him, which she later said she was forced to say by her abusive husband, Diana's loyalty never shook. She saw the boy she had once taught and guided, the man she believed was misunderstood by everyone, and she stood firm beside him. By 1995, when Michael collapsed during a rehearsal and had to be rushed to the hospital, Diana came to see him. People who were in the room said her presence changed the whole atmosphere. Michael visibly relaxed and held onto her hand like it was the only thing keeping him safe. At that time, Michael was married to Lisa Marie Presley, but even Lisa Marie was asked to leave the room when Diana arrived. It was an action that showed more than any words could. Diana had a place in Michael's life that no wife, girlfriend, or friend could ever replace. The storm of accusations came back in 2003 with a documentary called Living with Michael Jackson by Martin Bashir, which showed Michael admitting he allowed children to share his bed. Soon after that, new criminal charges were filed, and in 2005, Michael had to stand trial in Santa Maria, California. The court proceedings were brutal. Months of people testifying, tabloid headlines everywhere, and prosecutors determined to end his career. Michael was eventually found not guilty on all charges, but the damage to his image lasted forever. Throughout all these years, Diana kept her loyalty. While many people in the entertainment industry stayed away from him, fearing that being associated with scandal would hurt them too, Diana never publicly turned her back on him. To her, Michael was still the boy she had taken under her wing in 1969, still the artist she had watched become the greatest performer on earth. Her defense wasn't loud or aggressive. It was quiet, steady, and based on decades of history together. On June 25, 2009, the news of Michael Jackson's sudden death shocked the entire world. Fans gathered outside hospitals, radio stations played his songs over and over, and tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. But for Diana Ross, losing him was painfully personal. Just hours after he died, she released a statement that captured her grief in simple words. "I can't stop crying. This is too sudden and shocking. My heart is hurting. She had lost not only a friend, but the boy who once looked at her like she was the center of his whole universe. Soon, another revelation made their bond even deeper and more meaningful. Michael's will from 2002 was discovered, and in it, he had made a decision few people expected. If his mother, Katherine Jackson, couldn't take care of his children, the next guardian would be Diana Ross. Not his sisters, not his brothers, not even Debbie Rowe, who was the mother of two of his children, Diana Ross. In legal terms, it was just one sentence in a document, but in emotional terms, it was a declaration more powerful than any song lyric he had ever written. It meant that Michael trusted her more than anyone else on earth to raise his most precious legacy, his children. To the outside world, the choice seemed confusing. Some critics pointed to Diana's past problems, including getting arrested for drunk driving, arguing she wasn't fit for such responsibility. But to Michael, the reasoning was simple and clear. Diana had raised 5 children of her own. She had been a guiding light in his darkest times, and she had never betrayed him. In a life where he could trust hardly anyone, she had earned his absolute confidence. Years later, when a documentary called Leaving Neverland brought back all the scandals surrounding Michael, Diana, who was then in her 70s, went on Twitter to defend him. She wrote, "This is what's on my heart this morning. I believe and trust that Michael Jackson was and is a magnificent, incredible force to me and to many others. At a time when the world was once again attacking his legacy, she stood firm, using her own reputation to protect his. And then at 81 years old, Diana finally broke the silence she had carried for decades. In a quiet conversation, she admitted, 'Michael loved me in a way that's not easy to name.' She described how, from the first time he said it, he never wavered or changed his feelings, and though she cared deeply for him, she could never match that intensity. She could never love him back the same way he loved her. Her words weren't dramatic or showy. They were calm, almost tired, as though she was exhausted from holding back the truth for so long. She admitted she had kept her distance, not because she didn't care, but because she knew his love was fragile, almost too sacred and special to touch. Some truths take a whole lifetime to come to the surface. Diana Ross waited until she was 81 to finally put words to the bond she shared with Michael Jackson. A love story that was never complete, but never forgotten. Do you think Michael ever found peace in the love he carried for her? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories of music legends.